We're back with another episode of Today and Tomorrow with Scottsdale with Don and Kevin. Kevin, how are you?
Greetings, Mr. Henninger.
We had a week off. I missed you, man.
Yeah, didn't see you for a while. I had to call you up and check in on you.
I heard you went to San Diego.
Yeah, I did go to San Diego.
That must be nice.
It was nice. It was super nice. We had great weather, too. Usually that marine layer comes in a little bit gloomy, but it was perfect every day.
No, we got some heat in the studio today.
Oh, we do?
We do, and it's a guest. His name is Carlos Alfaro. He's the founder of the Arizona Talks Foundation. Welcome, Carlos. Great to have you, man.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Carlos and his group are amazing. Carlos is a civic leader and a policy event strategist, and he's built strong platforms that foster inclusive civil debate on public issues through the Arizona Talks Foundation, through professional roles, through recognition like his Flinn Brown Fellowship. He's becoming a respected voice in Arizona's policy and civic engagement landscape. Born in Mexico, Carlos grew up in Scottsdale, where he lives today. You went to Scottsdale Community College for a while, too.
That's right. Yeah, the Fighting Artichokes.
You got Scottsdale in your blood, man. I love it. Well, welcome, Carlos. Talk to us a little bit about, take us from Mexico to Scottsdale to Arizona Talks. All in one big happy moment.
And I'm glad to frame it that way, because that really is the way this came about. I was 11 years old when my family decided to move from Mexico to Arizona, and they chose Scottsdale as their home. There was a lot of debate in the family about where to live, and my mom had the ultimate say. She said Scottsdale.
She was the boss.
She liked the school. She liked it.
Yeah.
So we came here, and in 2001, we got here in July. It was a shock because I didn't have a lot of English under my belt. Actually, I was very new to the language. Obviously, they teach it in Mexico in grade school, but there's nothing like going to the country and actually being immersed in the language.
Absolutely, all the little nooks and crannies that come with all the little areas of wherever you are, right?
And only a couple months before September of that year, which you guys remember, September 11th was about the biggest culture shock somebody could get as a new immigrant in the United States. I was in school, didn't quite understand what was going on. I had to go home all the way until the end of the day for my mom to kind of explain to us what had happened. And it kind of rose a lot of questions in my mind, like, what does it mean to be a citizen? What does it mean to go to war? What does it mean for this nation to be at war? And it sort of kicked off a line of questioning that got me to maybe I'm interested in civic debate. Maybe I'm interested in politics and policy. And ended up saying this is something that I like.
So you went to ASU too, right, after Scottsdale Community College?
Yeah, absolutely.
ASU. And what were you doing, and what was the encounter that led you to launch Arizona Talks?
Yeah, so we were the college libertarians at ASU, but 6 guys on a Wednesday with a pizza in the middle, thinking, how are we going to get people to care about these issues? And how do you get students to talk about foreign policy and monetary policy? So we decided to start doing debates about hot issues like gun rights, like immigration, education funding.
Just amongst yourselves?
Yeah, to attract other students to come and talk about these issues. We knew that people were interested, but we were not serving it in the right way. People were doing it very much in the traditional college Republican or Democrat way, where you bring in candidates and tell people you should volunteer and it's a good thing. We wanted to go and jump right into the controversy. So we started doing these debates. We grew from 6 to 60 to 100. Pretty soon, every Wednesday, our meeting was filled with hundreds of students rooting for their side on a particular issue. And that's really what launched the idea that public debate is something that is desired, something that is demanded by people that live around us.
That is so super cool. So what did it take to found the foundation? What was that all about?
Yeah, so we were doing this sort of like a hobby pastime. A lot of us, and I say us because it was the same kids from ASU that graduated. We started working in campaigns. I started working as a campaign manager, particularly in the ballot initiative realm. Yeah. But we always had this itch for debate and discourse. And so we would meet at pubs at the end of the day, and we would have discussions and debates with one another. It grew into unofficial events where we just wanted to do the same thing we were doing in college. And it took until COVID, where we couldn't do anything else. We couldn't gather people together. We were so used to it. We said, okay, well, we better make this an organization. We can't waste time. So we filed for official paperwork. We became an official nonprofit. got our board together, and now it's our 5th year as an official organization here in Arizona.
That's amazing. You've been to some of their events. They're really terrific,
Absolutely.
aren't they? Yeah.
I have to think about. Here's another example. Wasn't COVID such a catalyst for innovation? How many industries and companies and organizations that were born out of pivoting from what COVID made us do?
Totally right.
Right.
A little bit of creative destruction there.
Yeah.
We didn't want to change. The world forced us to change, and a lot of creativity came about that.
It's amazing what creates, what sparks creativity sometimes, isn't
Yeah.
it? So what does nonpartisan civic discourse look like in our polarized climate today?
Yeah, well, I don't think I have to point to, the multiple examples for anybody to know that we are in a state of toxic rhetoric, And, this also, when you study history, you might think that has always been with us. People have been dishonest, have mistrust of one another for a long time. But I think that in order for us to be healthy as a democracy, we really need that ability to sit down with one another and share values, even though we disagree. The goal is never to agree on everything, but to continue this lab experiment of democracy in America. Can we move on, live with people that are completely different than us, and still be a country at the end of the day? So
important, Carlos. I mean, the future of democracy right now is in question, and your examples of where it's needed, it's from the top level down to the local level, even the city council level here in Scottsdale, where we see this rhetoric all the time right now and this divide for whatever reason, just tearing people apart.
Yeah, and a lot of this is social science. What does it mean to have good debate? What does good mean? And we like to, from all of the years that we've done this, we come down to really 3 values. I mean, it has to be fact-based. That could be the minimum requirement. If you're going to put up a claim, it has to be backed by something. I think it needs to be civil as well. We need to respect one another and not dive into name-calling or just stump speech. And then it has to be robust. It can't just be all of us agreeing with each other. It has to actually represent the strongest arguments of all sides. And if we have those 3 values, we usually end up having a good discourse, and that's how we like to define it.
Got to break out of the silos, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You've seen these silos; they're everywhere, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You gotta. I like how you're talking about how these are the metrics you use to decide if you had a productive conversation or not.
Yeah, and it's the same people. Like everybody asks me, what kind of people go to these things? And really, we have MAGA supporters, a lot of Republicans, a lot of Democrat and progressive supporters. We have people that don't even go to political events, that see themselves as a business owner or just a family person. But our events give them the ability to be engaged in a very accessible way. You won't see a lot of people in suits when you come to Arizona Talks. It's at a brewery or at a local restaurant or a local venue, because we want to feature that part of Arizona too. It's part of going out and learning is being in community with people in good spaces.
Perfect. So you cover tough topics, from election integrity to DEI. What is the secret to hosting events that stay respectful yet, to your point, honest?
Yeah, I think the speakers, who we pick. The messenger has to actually represent the strongest of their argument. What is the end goal? It's to have a good discussion. So what I like to tell people is what is the best argument about what you're going to say or what you believe? And if we start there, we can really dive into some good points on the other side and be forgiving and give permission to others to disagree a little bit better. So I think it comes down to having those values.
So how do you do that? How do you choose topics? How do you choose speakers?
Yeah, so we do a lot of background checks. One of them is the background of the speaker, what title they have in the state. Are they relevant to the conversation? And then we really do a check of their social media and their previous statements. Are they a civil person? Have they called people names? Have they threatened violence towards somebody? And that really points us to which speaker we want. And again, it's not because we disagree with their viewpoints. In fact, we want to share all viewpoints in our stage, but it's about having the strongest point there. And the way to have the strongest point is to bring out a speaker that is humble, honest, and that it's going to be civil to the other speakers around.
It takes a lot of work to find those today.
I was just going to say, is that challenge? That's got to be challenging sometimes, I bet, right?
Very much so.
To find somebody who has, especially if it's an opposing point of view, who is still civil, polite and has respect, that may be hard to find sometimes.
I got to say, it's about 50-50, maybe a little bit less, where speakers come back and not only say they're not able to do it, they tell us, some of these political speakers tell us, I don't want to do it because there will be another person that I don't like there. There will be a Democrat there. There will be a Republican.
Really?
And if I take a picture with them, they will unelect me or they will primary me.
Is that right?
And they tell us that pretty freely. We hear that all of the time. Out of all of the events that we do, about 50% of the invitations that we send out come back like that. That's a double-edged sword because not only do we get that kind of bad side, the good part is we identify good politicians and good leaders that are willing to have the conversation no matter who's on stage because they see it as part of their service.
Have you ever had to reject somebody as a speaker?
Not yet. Thankfully, I think we're at a point as an organization where most of our speakers are getting invitations or referrals from our board.
So you're reaching out. You guys are reaching out.
But we do steer clear of some political voices because of that, because of the same thing that I mentioned earlier, where they haven't been civil. They don't really represent the strongest argument. They might represent the loudest argument. But what we want is a conversation that lasts, a conversation that informs people and gives them a little bit of positive hope. Yeah. And if you put a politician up there that is just doing stump speech, that's not going to be interesting enough. You have to bring somebody that actually cares. And I think time after time, after trying and failing to get some of these speakers, you start getting the ones that are going to give you that conversation.
That makes sense. You know what you're doing now for sure.
Yeah, it's a science, but it's a social science, you know? It's a very soft science, and we don't think we have the perfect model, but we think that it's, improved over the years for sure.
Yeah. What's the format like? You have a moderator, and do you have just two speakers, or?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest challenges to interest people in this kind of stuff is that it's so dull. The policy conversation is kind of like at the ivory tower level, and the questions are just not exciting. So what we do is we try to break it down into personal stories. I think that's what really gets people to see the other side. It's not the arguments and the numbers. It really comes down to that personal side. So our first spot, or the first part of the event, is every speaker gets up there and does their 5 to 10 minute personal story on that issue. How are they connected to education? How are they connected to immigration policy? Once everybody has gone and you've seen that human side of them, then we put them on a panel and ask them about the issue through the lens of their personal stories. That really breaks down a lot of the political rhetoric and even some of the negativity, because now you see that speaker as a mom or as a teacher, as an Arizonan that cares about this stuff, that has had a different experience. And I recently heard that it's not arguments that switch people's minds, it's people's experiences that give people the visual of, another perspective.
It's all about relationships, huh?
Yeah.
It makes total sense. So you do a good job of vetting the speakers, and it's been all worked out well. You have a little less control in vetting the crowd.
Yeah.
So have you had any instances where the crowd got out of control, or how does that all play out?
In the multiple years that we've been doing this, that's always been a worry, because that is true. We can't really control what the crowd does. And as we grow in crowd size, that's been a worry of ours. And even so, to the point where we are thinking, we need to have security, we need to have the proper insurance, the proper logistics in place to be able to handle an event like this if anything happens. And thankfully, nothing has happened to the point where people even yell out or try to make somebody look bad. And I think it's related to one thing. This is a very self-selecting thing. Yeah. I think we're not trying to switch people's minds or put anybody on the spot. I think what we're really trying to do is understand and listen to one another. So the people that come to these events aren't there to dunk on each other. They're there to actually listen, because there's not another platform that allows for this. Most of the platforms on policy or politics is usually dunking on a side or, being super sure that your side is the best.
Always.
Yes.
Listening, Kevin, a lost art, isn't it?
Absolutely.
At every level that you and I pay attention to, and we hear it over and over on these podcasts, people would just listen to each other.
Yeah. And understand that I'm a big believer that, and I know you guys feel this way too, is that if we tear the layers apart, you can dig deep enough, there's a human story there, and you can make a connection.
Totally.
Sometimes you have to go a little bit deeper with other people than you do with some people, but there's always a connection there. Have I ever told you my dog story?
No.
About how I came to believe this is.
Let's hear it.
I don't know. A couple years ago, I was driving down Hayden Road, and there was a dog running around in the middle of the intersection. And it broke my heart. Somebody had to save this dog. He was in peril. So I pulled over the side of the road and got out of my car and tried to wrangle this dog out of the intersection. Meanwhile, 4 or 5 other people did the same thing. So very shortly, we had 4 or 5 people who had all abandoned their cars and were trying to work together to get this dog out of danger. And the dog kept avoiding us all and going down the road. And so we would advance down the road a little further, block, 2 blocks, 3 blocks, 4 blocks. And meanwhile, the group grew to like 10, 12 people, right?
Wow.
And we were all working for a common goal to rescue this dog. Eventually, somebody got a hold of the dog, and they took him. I don't know what happened to the dog. But anyway, the dog was safe, right? And as I was driving home, I was realizing myself, we were all working together without any verbal communication or a strategy. We just commonly came together to try to help somebody for a common good. I go, I don't know anything about those people. Those people I could find out later on that they could be fundamentally opposed to something I believe, but it didn't matter.
Yeah.
Because at that point, we'd found common ground about something, and we jumped right to it.
Ken, that almost brings a tear to my eye.
Yeah, right?
Talking about that.
I always think about that all the time. I'm like, if you can just dig a little deeper, even though your worst enemy, you could probably find something in common with.
Sometimes it's like peeling an onion. You may have to peel back and cry for a while.
Yeah.
But you're going to get there, right? So
Yeah.
you just got to work at it. You got to be willing to work at it.
And it comes down to the people side. You might have never met those people had it not been for that instance.
Yeah.
That happens all the time at these things, you know.
I bet.
I'll tell you a story about one event that we had. Have you ever heard of the Supreme Court case on the gay wedding cake in Colorado?
Sure. Yeah.
So, you know, our thought is we need to experience this debate through the eyes of these of the most knowledgeable people on this issue. So we invited both of the attorneys that argued it at the Supreme Court to come
Really?
and argue it in front of us.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Were they from Colorado?
Well, actually, one of the organizations is based here in Scottsdale, Lions Defending Freedom.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And then the other one is based in D.C., but they have people here that allowed us to connect with them from the ACLU.
I see.
So it was both of those organizations on one stage. First of all, that almost never happens, that those organizations come and are on the same stage to talk about one issue. The local NPR station here moderated. But I think what was magical about that was that there was 2 crowds that each of those organizations brought that had never met each other.
Right.
They had never met somebody that had the opposite view because they saw it as so bad, and, you know, so reprehensible that somebody would think that way. And then we diffused it. We had an intermission with cake. We served plain white icing
Wedding
cake.
cake. Yeah.
Yes, wedding cake for everybody to not only eat it and have a good time and a chuckle, but also to meet one another.
Yeah.
And it was wonderful to see those 2 connect. So anytime that anybody tells me, I really don't like that politician, or I really don't like that person, I'm like, well, have you actually met them? Have you talked with them? Even if you've heard what they said, I think meeting a person really does change your view on who they are.
You both are restoring my faith in humanity right now.
It can happen.
You know,
I mean, it's hard to
absolutely.
see right now.
Absolutely. It's hard to see, but it's there.
Yeah.
And it's in all of us, and it comes out when it comes out. And
Have you ever seen any relationships that have been kind of forged at an Arizona Talks event that have endured and gone on and sort of been galvanized and been enduring relationships?
Yeah, I mean, one that really comes to mind is former mayor of Phoenix, current Congressman Stanton, and also a radio talk show host, Mike Broomhead.
Sure, I was going to guess that.
You know, they've both been doing what they've been doing, leading and talking for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, over the years, maybe they've, you know, said a few things that they disagree with over the time. The invitations went out to both of them to come and speak about immigration. And, you know, we got really good responses. They're very good leaders. They really come out for the community and see this as part of their service. But they were worried. They were like, oh, I haven't been on a stage with him. I don't know what he's going to think. I don't know what he's going to say. They gave us enough trust to say, hey, trust us. We'll put a good panel together. Not only did they have a really good conversation that day, but now they talk with each other and go on each other's communications. You know, they go on each other's shows and talk to each other. 2 Arizona leaders and voices
Totally.
that weren't connected, might have been a little worried about each other, about civility, but at the end of the day, our connection made a good relationship there. And I think that happens along the way.
You are doing some important work. You're putting people together that otherwise never probably would have been put together. So that's amazing. So I was curious about whether you had a recent event or a conversation that really surprised you and perhaps even moved you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the latest conversation we had on DEI, diversity and inclusion, and the federal policies and funding that gets tied along with that. We recently hosted the Goldwater Institute and the ACLU to come and talk about that.
Right?
Yes. Not only that, we had a Republican representative and a Democrat representative also on the stage.
I love it.
Talking about, why they voted yes or no on these certain bills at the state level or they supported at the federal. That's the one that kind of worried me. I thought, oh, wow, this is going to be really tense. This is going to be, we got to make sure we cross our T's here. Couldn't have been the most cordial conversation and deep conversation. I think we identified that they see the country in a truly different way. The reason why they disagreed is not because they're against diversity and inclusion, it's the way they see the country. I think one side sees the country as one that got started with the Enlightenment and freedom. The other one sees it as an industrialized country that was built on the back of slaves. And that's sort of the discourse that we got to after an hour. Is we got so deep that we were talking about what their viewpoint was on the country and how it was founded. Wow. And we got to find out that's really the discourse and the discussion here. It's not Democrats or Republicans or this program or that one. Is how do you see the country's values and the country's history? And I heard from a lot of people that attended, I've never considered this, but it could be both. Yeah. It could be that we have a really good country that values personal freedom, and that's good, but also has a very troubled past with slavery and many other things. So I think we're opening the discourse to be a little bit deeper than just, are you for or against an issue? It's more about, how do you really see this country? Peeling
back the onion some more. That's what it takes to get to what you want to find out. So that makes total sense for sure. So you were a Flinn Brown Fellow. How did that shape your network, your vision for Arizona's future?
I think it's more about expanding it. You know about Arizona and all of the institutions that it has, and you read about it in the paper or on social media. But I think it gives you the opportunity to actually meet the people who are moving it forward and seeing them as people and as people who have to get up and struggle and sometimes don't have energy to keep going but have to because that's what they want to do. It also connects you to people that are very much civically minded. There are just people that like this stuff. We always have a debate on our staff in Arizona Talks whether are we turning people's minds, are we converting people to have better dialogue, or are we identifying people that already agree with us and building more of a base there? And so we kind of go back and forth about that. And this is definitely the other. This is identifying people that already are civically minded, that want to make an impact, that have been doing it, and then just growing and multiplying from that. I think that's a really good home for Arizona Talks as well.
Makes total sense. So what's one conversation that we're not having today that we need to have today?
I really do think the media conversation, the mistrust in our media institutions today. On one end, it's great for the diversity of conversations that we can have and the niches that we are creating. One of these podcasts being the example of it, right? But another is the ability to have the same facts, the ability to believe what is being talked about. And thankfully, I think I've seen different data on this, but I think people trust their local media a bit more than the national news or cable news.
It's true.
And that speaks to, hey, I trust the people that are around me to care about the same city or the same state.
Relationships.
And so I think, having a conversation about replacing or, transforming that trust again and building it up would be great. And how do we do it? Because I think the number one people who are trying to solve that are the media organizations themselves.
Near and dear to my heart, Kevin.
That was a really good answer. Did you guys, either one of you, happen to see this past weekend on CNN, the live broadcast of George Clooney's
awesome.
Good Night and Good Luck?
Yeah.
It was good, wasn't it?
It was
But
awesome.
Did you see the panel afterwards?
Yeah, I did.
And they had that panel of media, and they were really going after each other. And even Abby Phillip from CNN News, who has a show on CNN, was talking about how they don't trust national news media.
Right.
And here's why. And she laid out a really good answer. I was really impressed by that panel.
The thing that people forget, and Carlos mentioned it, is the trust that people have in local media.
Yeah.
Even down to our level, the Scottsdale Independent, which, full disclosure, I'm on their board, but I'm a former newspaper guy, so this speaks right to my heart. There's more trust there because these are the people who are showing up. These are the people you're seeing person to person. These are people you can call up or go down the street and see them in their house. Yeah. It's all about relationships and trust, and you build trust with relationships, including in the media world. So, great point. That was a great.
It was a good interview.
That show, by the way, was I was just.
Had you seen? Did you see the movie?
I'd seen the movie, but the play I thought was superb.
Yeah, it was really good.
What a job. Carlos, you got a lot of things coming up at Arizona Talks. Let's give you some promotion, man. You got you told me about a bunch, but tell us some of the things that are coming up.
Yeah, we really see a future here in Arizona of discourse. We want Arizona to be known for good discourse, not only that we're a battleground state or that we have some wacky laws that we get passed. We also want Arizona to be known for that. So our goal is to put as many examples of good dialogue, good debate out into the world, partnering up with local media, but also doing it in the community dialogue space. So this month we're celebrating Independence Day, bringing the community together around our shared value that we want to make this country stronger and safer and more prosperous. And so we're putting a festival together at the Deuce in downtown Phoenix on Saturday, June 28th. That's the Saturday before 4th of July. But a 4th of July celebration. Essentially, red, white, and blue. We have contests. We've partnered up with KTAR News to, raffle different tickets and different prizes for the kids and games. And prominent leaders from Arizona will be there to do a toast to Arizona and then to the country. So people like Representative Walt Blackman, Annalise Ortiz. We have the Phoenix Poet Laureate coming down and doing spoken word poem style speech, and even the national anthem a cappella will be sang. So it's a very community-focused event, a little bit different than the debate aspect, but I think very, very important to the civic health component that we're talking about.
It's awesome. You're cooking up some deals with PBS too, right? The PBS station?
Yeah. So right now our audience is about 120 to 150 per event, given whatever topic. Some are bigger, some are smaller. But I think as we're growing, we're thinking, how do we affect a few thousand people rather than a few hundred people at a time? And we think that partnering up with local media to broadcast these conversations, to open it up to more of an audience is the answer here. And so you'll see, hopefully, over the course of next year, partnerships with PBS, KTAR, and others to be able to broadcast these conversations. And yes, have the very heated discussions on who's going to get elected, but also have intelligent, common sense discussion on these issues for those that want to learn a little bit more about the issue or go a little bit deeper into the stories on the issue.
Super cool. So we're going to be able to see some of your shows on PBS, Channel 8 down the road.
Yeah, ideally there and many others. Yes.
Yeah, fantastic.
Let me ask you guys a question since I have both of you in the same room and kind of have you captive for a second here. Carlos, Arizona Talks, we talked about what their mission is, in community dialogue, engagement. Don, you're on the Arizona Democracy Resiliency Network, a part of that group, and you guys are obviously election integrity, but you guys have a lot of synergy where you guys are working together for sort of common goals. How are your organizations different?
Well, a couple of things. One, just to say, we are working together. We're working on a couple of projects together that we hope to launch here pretty soon. A couple differences are Carlos is more central on specific issues, and which I love, and bringing good civil debate to what those issues might be. We're trying to build a statewide network that has many of the same common goals and principles that Carlos has been talking about, and spread that out throughout Arizona.
Okay.
And look for ways that we can mitigate the potential for violence that's out there. Look for ways to build trust in our institutions and our elections and our media and other legacy institutions that now people say they don't trust. So we actually are on similar paths. Kind of like two train tracks going down the road, separate tracks, but heading in the same direction.
Yeah, I guess I'm getting it now. So you guys are focused on election integrity, and having civil dialogue will get you to election integrity, right? Part of it when you're focused on election integrity on all different kinds of issues.
Right.
I mean, so I get it now.
And one other thing I might add to that is I think we're both concerned, and what we're both working at actually as an overall goal is promoting the civic health of our communities.
Yep.
And at the end, democracy is part of that, and a lot of the issues that you're bringing up are all part of that. So it's all kind of in the same stew. At the end of the day, it's how do we foster and sustain the civic health of our communities? And right now, that's something that's sorely needed.
Yeah, and you would think, hey, people really agree with this stuff. This is common sense. This is friendly. But sadly, I think these days we do have to say, hey, we believe in a pluralistic America. We believe that there could be many different ideas. And if we stick by the Constitution and the rule of law, we can still all live together. I think we have to come back to those founding ideas because that's what's going to kind of get us there. And we can spread those ideas not through the dull way of like a classroom or maybe even like a panel that, it doesn't really inform,
right,
or a debate, but you could do it in a very engaging way that attracts people that might not be in that circle yet, that say, oh, that's not for me, but maybe this is the first thing that they go to.
Very cool. Carlos, how can people connect with Arizona Talks?
So Arizona Talks is very organic, comes from the community. We have a membership program that really supports our work. It's $100 a year, a lot similar to what local public broadcast or any of those organizations are like, where Arizonans are coming in and saying, I believe in civil dialogue, and it's so important to me that I'm going to attend the events and then support the organization.
Perfect.
So by becoming a member, you can come to any event for free. It allows you to bring other people with you and build community there. You can also make a donation and partner up with us if you're an organization or a corporate partner, and that all of that information is at arizonatalks.org.
arizonatalks.org. I would encourage everybody to take a look at that because what Carlos is doing is amazing. I'm a member. I'll be a supporter all along the way, and the more the better.
Thank
we
you
want to
so much,
expand on
Don.
what you're doing, Carlos. Amazing work. Kevin, any final questions for Carlos?
No, you guys did great today. It was a very enlightening conversation.
Fantastic. Carlos, thank you so much for what you're doing. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show. It's a pleasure working with you, too. I look forward to dreaming up some projects we can work on together.
Same here. It's all about that creativity, especially as we go into these next 2 big election cycles.
Man, I know. I don't want to. It makes my head hurt right now thinking about it, but we'll be there and we'll be working hard at it for sure. And you can find us at scottnow.com, and please share our podcast with your friends and join Arizona Talks as well. We'll be back with you again next week for another edition of Today and Tomorrow in Scottsdale.